In today's episode, we take a $1 piece of foam board that we got from the dollar store and turn it into some awesome two-sided modular dungeon tiles. So the first thing we're going to do is just mark out the length and width for these tiles that we'd like to use. There's definitely multiple lengths and sizes you can use for these tiles, but I chose to go with a 3" by 3" square, a 6" by 6" square, and then just with some of the cutoff scraps, I decided to do some 2" by 6" kind of hallway type pieces. Once that was covered over the entire board, I began to cut that out with a sharpened utility knife. And just make sure that you're either doing nice slow passes to get nice straight cuts, or if you have a metal ruler, you can also place it along that line and just follow the edge of that. After that, we're just going to start tearing off the paper on both sides of these foam. And if you do find that the type of foam you have is difficult to get that paper off, you can also just soak those in water. That will loosen up the paper itself, but the foam will still be fine underneath. From there, we're just going to match those up and hot glue them together, making sure those ends line up. And then once you're done, you'll have a whole bunch of pieces that need texture. So to do that, we're going to take a ball of aluminum foil for one side and just really push that into it to get a nice detailed stone face. You can use multiple types of methods to get this if you want to use just a rock and push that into it. But next, we're going to mark out the grid for these. I decided to do 1.5" by 1.5", which is the same width as my square here. So for that, I just put it up along the edge and started tracing the bottom side. And then for this larger square, I was able to just line up along the inside lines there to trace in the center lines. Now, one of the benefits of actually using a Sharpie pen like this is that ink will actually melt the foam just a little bit, and that will help you get that groove in there to kind of create the tile stone plates there that you see. So the first time I actually recorded the audio for this video, I pretty much spent the entire time talking about some of the channel goals and just kind of what I want to do this year for the channel. I decided that it'd be best if I stuck to the tutorial for this and just a brief explanation of all that. So to outline what I'd like to do with this channel this year is to create a stronger community of like-minded artists that can kind of work together and teach and inspire more artists coming into this hobby, as well as just to create a nice library of content to help other people kind of get inspired and find tips that make these goals more achievable. And some of the ways I like to do that this year is I want to focus on a playlist that's going to be more for some specific skills, such as maybe just cutting out XPS foam correctly, or how to hot glue and dry brush, and just things of that nature that with the longer form videos don't actually have enough time that I can break down every step in detail as I can if I made a single video dedicated to that. So that's definitely something I like to focus on doing this year. So with that, I'd definitely be interested to hear what you all have to think about that as we move forward into this year to help teach and inspire other artists coming into this hobby. But back to the project at hand. Now, once these were primed and had that nice layer of Mod-Podge over them, I did some experimenting with some blues mixed into the sponging. Now, doing that as the base layer, it really just covered it up with the yellows and reds. And if I were to do blue again, I would probably do that last or on top. But honestly, I did feel that the brighter colors really work better as they kind of just go through that gray a little bit better. So after I had overbrushed with some gray, I began the dry brushing stage, just making sure to wipe off most of that paint because with these flat surfaces it will catch a lot more. And I definitely noticed it on the first couple that I did where I put down a lot more paint than what was really needed. But as I went, I kind of got the feel for it, and especially towards the end I noticed that you can really just use the very edge of the brush and just lightly go over that. Now to finish up the stone side, all I did was take a brown wash and kind of let that dry on top, just to kind of create a dusty and weathered look to it. Now for the wood side, I just did 2 thin layers of the burnt umber, just keeping it thin so that you can really keep all that detail on there, but also get good coverage so that there's not any kind of black or anything showing through. Now once it had dried, I just took a mixture of that same burnt umber with some of the yellow sienna and just mix that together and began dry brushing over all of the wood. Really focusing more on the ends of the boards, but then also just kind of letting the brush catch where it will So you'll see that there's some streaks throughout the middle and on the edges that are a little bit heavier, but I think that kind of adds a bit more to a weathered, maybe tavern floor. Now, once that was done, all that was left to do was to go through with some black and clean up some of the edges in between. So when I started, I first just kind of covered the entire thing black, but as I went on, I really just focused on any kind of spots that had any kind of overbrushing where colors were leaking through. Because once they were already primed, they were pretty well covered. So anyway, that completes this build. So here's a bit of a showcase with these. Now for being $1, I thought they were pretty great. Now that is, of course, if you already have all of the paint materials and everything else, but for a single piece of foam core to get all of these tiles, I'm pretty happy with that. But anyways, that's all that I have time for in this video. So if you have any questions or comments, please let me know down below, and I will certainly look into each of those. But for today, that's all I have time for, so keep crafting, keep learning, and keep believing in yourself. Thank you for watching.